So yeah, a bit of context and background to the study. I did the study in a small town called Norton, as you will see later. And it's one of the former industrial towns, like with a very promising industry, I would say, before the 1990s. But then things okay, and as it stands now, it resembles more of an industrial ruin. Like there's nothing happening there, the industry is dead, and trying to find alternative ways of surviving. But a brief background about Zimbabwe, it used to be one of sub-Saharan Africans. Back then, they diversified, and yeah, they also thought it was one of the best managed economies coming second to South Africa. It used to have a very strong industrial sector, agro industries, mining, metal industry, and it enjoyed like a very long spell of economic growth, definitely from the 1930s, late 1930s, up until the 1990s. So manufacturing was contributing to this 25% of the country's GDP, and manufacturing actually spearheaded or it drove urbanization. And urban centers started to grow. The likes of Harare and Bulawayo actually growing from small towns or medium towns to cities, and they are now metropolitan cities. Then a number of many other cities as well that grew based on manufacturing. So in 1990, less than 10% of the total population was employed in the informal sector. So which kind of points out to the fact that unemployment was very low. We used to import labor from the likes of Zambia, Malawi, and Mozambique. So most of these urban households actually relied on employment for their survival. Then come the 1990s, life happened, I would say. A lot of things started happening. We had the post-war, the conflict, 1983 to 1997, where a lot of people were killed, civilians, tourists, missionaries, and early scholars on the industrialization. This was the beginning of like the capital of life, investors choosing to invest elsewhere. So Bulawayo, the metropolitan region, the southern region that borders South Africa and Botswana, was the most affected, and that's when the industrialization started. But well, it was not at a very like in actual industrialization started happening after the introduction of the ESAP, economic plan in the 1990s. So these were recommended by the World Bank, the IMF, and many macroeconomic adjustment policies were implemented: privatization, liberalization, current devaluation, deregulation, austerity measures, among many. But what it led to, the idea behind was to try and boost the economy. But the opposite happened. The economic decline, themes, local manufacturing themes actually started to experience competition, external competition, and industry gradually decline. And this impacted a lot quite on urban employment and livelihoods, as many lost their jobs and their livelihoods. So we also had issues around droughts. We also had the land reform, which was not done in a very organized manner. We also participated as a country in the DRC war in 1997 until 2005, I think, and they say the money that we used was never meant to So it was diverted from what were supposed to be productive sectors, the state-run firms to fund or then there are also allegations of corruption and abuse of public funds by those in power and some radical economic policies. The Economic Empowerment Act, it actually forces foreign-owned companies to cede 51% of their stake to local. So, yeah, critics say it didn't go well with many investors who chose to withdraw their investment debt. So now I narrowed down my study. We started like the Norton. It's a small, but going down, I would say, located 40 kilometers away from the capital city. Harare. Started as a small farming community by early white settlers in the 1890s. But then over time it grew into an organized planned industrial center which attracted investors interested in farming, in engineering, mining as well. So as industry expanded, it created jobs and it attracted labor from other cities and towns as well. People relocate from Harare, from Lawai, just to come to work in Norton. But the turning point came 1990. The economic crisis started, industrialization occurred, and most of the industrial firms now are in ruin, which kind of motivated me to come up with the title of the presentation, Livelihoods After Industrial Ruins. So now the question is how people are surviving without like a formal economy, without formal employment. And this is what the study actually attempted to do. So if you look at theoretical contextual framing, we located that in well, it's a new discipline coming from I would say the global south, which is called Southern Urbanism. And the idea here is like we need to recognize African urbanism as unique. It should be studied and should be understood using new or Afrocentric or African or Southern generated theories and frameworks based on the lived realities of African cities, as opposed to borrowed concepts and frameworks from the global north. We also located this in the concept of informal urbanism, where informality argument is informality should be recognized as a form of urbanization. Then small town study. Yeah, our argument, me and my cohort was small towns not given the attention that they should find or that they should get. And like they are really important as my study actually like realized that people were running away from Harare, the capital, where life is tougher and coming to seek refuge in a small town, but no one is taking those down. I had a difficult time trying to locate or find which is about that town, but it wasn't available. So yeah, we argue that we need more urban research that focus on small towns, not only in urban studies, but in all other fields. Then we also borrowed the concept of urgency and resilience. Like in the face of difficult times, people always come up with ways of building resilience and trying to survive. And we related that to the action-oriented approach by Manuel, then the deviation thesis as well by Norton. Then the methodology. So this presentation is based on findings from two different studies by two different researchers, two very different projects done over two different time periods. So the first one is my PhD and level in automatic industrialization done between 2017 and 19. Then my colleague worked on the governance of small scale in Norton between 2019 and 2021. And we employed more or less the same methods in the interview, ethnography methods, I would say, the informal talk and observations, and we are also considering making GIS as well as we work on submitting the paper. Then our findings, they had a lot of similarities, and that's what actually motivated us to come up with the paper. So my findings, I'll jump this. So after losing their jobs in the presence of a very dysfunctional informal economy, people are resorting to the informal economy as a way of surviving. But the informal economy, it has its own problems, it has its own issues. So inside that economy, you have to be innovative, you have to be, let's say, you have to be hardworking, you have to be creative so that you survive in that space. It's very congested, there is a lot of competition happening there. And to survive that competition and to grow as a maybe more or informal entrepreneur, you have to come up with ways to. So our findings suggest that people are resorting to working at night, which is seeing the rise in the nighttime economy in Norton. And some of the factors behind that is they say we are compensating for missing services and infrastructure, and electricity stood out as one of those. Like as the economy fell, industry fell, it also affected like all other sectors. So the power generation declined, and there's a lot of load shedding happening. And it's not scheduled load shedding, it just happened, and in most cases, it's well, power is switched off during the day and is stored at night. So for those in the informal economy, in informal entrepreneurs who are manufacturing and they require electricity, they usually cannot do anything during the day. So to compensate for the time lost, to cover for the time for the ground and the time lost, they were saying we would start waiting when electricity is paid, like sometimes at 9, sometimes at 10, and wait overnight, then the rest during the day. Or we also do some manual tasks during the day, those that do not require electricity, then we complete the task at night. And so there are a lot of people doing carpentry, informal carpenters. There are a lot of people doing metal fabrication and observations, like walking through the townships and the suburbs and the marketplaces. You would see quite a lot of people like in their shops working at night, so that they cover for a long time during the day. So some of the responses, since we started experiencing this prolonged power cut, I've been working overnight when electricity is gone. I do this to compensate time lost during power cuts, which are high during the day. Many others in my grade are also doing the same. Then the other one was like, I am a videographer, and I also do printing. Since the electricity is not off during the day, we take orders from our clients during the day, then we work on them overnight. So what we usually do is printing prints like billboards, banners, and also editing with videos and everything like at night, because electricity is not available during the day. So another factor is that we discovered is working at night was more of like it's an innovation, it's a creativity, or it's a creative way of surviving. As highlighted earlier, the informal economy is very competitive. So operating for long hours, including working at night, was one strategy that could out. So informal like we wake up like very early, sometimes as early as 2 a.m. And we also knock off very late, sometimes as late as 11, 4 p.m. What we suggested is say the informalization of time is already an informal economy, but they are going beyond just informalizing the economy, but informalizing the time as well, working during times that they normally don't work. And we realize that they are also engaged in nighttime shift work, like as a family. I wake up at 2 a.m., I wake all the way until maybe 10, I go home, my the neighbor another sibling or my partner, he takes over from 11 until 6. He goes home to another one takes over again, like the cycle continues like that. So yeah, I operate until 11 p.m. I get up for late night shopper. If you go around the township at night, you will see many other operating at night. Another interesting finding was the creation of what we call the informal nighttime data economy by young male people. So basically, they are into soccer betting now, not as later or fun, time to make an income out of it. So the interesting thing about soccer betting or soccer matches, like they do that a lot in like the European football, the UEFA Champions League. There's also the World Cup, the English, the Spanish, the French, the Premier Soccer Leagues as well. So most of these matches are played into the night. If you realized last night when we were in King Street, matches were being played all the way until 11 p.m. So for them, it's like I have to go out there. I wait for my guests. If they win, I collect my guests. So many of them are actually frequenting like nightclubs and betting shops, like during the evening and at night, betting. And folks are recent actually confirmed that you visit some of the major shopping centers in town between 8, 9, 10, like a lot of young people actually involved in soccer betting. So some of the responses that we get, there is a growing number of people joining soccer betting because competitive matches, and because competitive matches extend into the night, our shop is always fully booked until midnight. Another one was also saying many soccer bettors prefer watching soccer here at the shops, close to the play store, so that they can quickly collect their money if they win. That's why most folks are full. We also realized that the increase in number of people like doing business at night is also attracting workers. Those who are selling food, for example, in others doing businesses and like selling clothes and electronic devices as well. So they are actually going out at night as well to target those people who are working at night. So it's increasingly becoming nocturnal town. And I have another interesting example of vegetable traders. So before the fall of industry, Norton was surrounded by farms and agricultural which produced vegetables. So they would source their vegetables like very close. But now, because most of the farms that were being done, then it's no longer there. Like the demand is higher than the supply. So vendors are forced now to go out. Like to Harare, there is a major vegetable market in Harare, 45 kilometers away. So they were saying like we leave Norton as early as 2 a.m. in the morning, and by 7 up to 9 we are already there. So that we start our day like very early. And informal transport providers as well are taking advantage of increasing night activity as well. So another the small taxi driver that we like the public taxi, the commuter driver that we talk to, it was like my first trip of the day is normally around 3 a.m., between 2 and 3 a.m., pairing vendors to the market in Harare so that they are paid and stuff like that. Then another one was saying business is good. No, okay. Another one was saying business is good during weekend and meetings, where there are late night meetings. The vet shops open until midnight, and people from like the far away locations of the town, they would require transport to go home like at night. So as a taxi driver, I have a lot of business done around 10, 11, 12, and even until 1 in the morning. Like I don't sleep, I have to wait to work. That's where I make most of my money. Then yeah, there are also issues around governance. I would say governance issues. Some of the informal economy activity or the sectors are heavily budgeted or regulated. We cited like fishing and sand or fire mining because they have environmental implications. So the regulations are very heavy out. So for someone to register, to participate or to work as a say small scale fisher, you need to have at least 3 licenses from 3 different authorities. And so they were saying it's time consuming, it takes a lot of money as well as from there. So how do we do it? We take advantage of the incapacitated or the under-resourced municipal police, like they can't really work beyond working hours, like at night. They have a shortage of resources, I would say. They are also understaffed. So at night, their presence is very limited. And that's when these informal entrepreneurs, because actually come in and start doing their business. Like no one is arresting us, no one is working us. We will do business at night. So they go fishing at night, they can put their fish back into the town like very early in the morning, around 2, 3. They are already selling, distributing it like with the traders. Then 5, 6 a.m. they are done. They are going back home. So we also argue that this is a form of, I would say, a system or violence or confrontation. They say we avoid confrontation. We can still do it during the day, but it comes at a cost. So rather leave it during the day. We find out that doing it like during the night. Then that's how we are surviving. So another factor that also stood out was like there is this popular belief that for you to start to work hard. And some of their understanding of working hard also entails working for long hours. So yeah, I wake up early in the morning, I home like very late in the evening. As a way of like, I'm trying to work hard so that if I work hard, I also earn more and I will probably make it in my life. So yeah, we would hear of stories of motivation speakers who like inspire people. Like rich people normally to say there is like work like around the clock. And so it's some of those the motivation that informal traders or informal entrepreneurs are also like trying to copy or imitate so that they can survive. So yeah, another one was like saying you enjoy speaking, your training will definitely start with one. So I have to wear as much as I can. Then popular saying like hard work pays off. And we concluded by quoting a verse that supports this notion of like living less and working more. For those who are Christians, they would know Proverbs 6. A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little more holding on to wealth and to rest, then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. started to attack you like coming over. So yeah, we like probably some of those the motivation behind waiting for long, eating less, and yeah, trying to survive. I think this is as far as we can go. We are trying to figure out the implications on such a scenario on town planning and urban governance. And yeah, I think this is what we have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Magdalena Kubal-Czerwinska, and with my colleagues Lukasz Matoga and Robert Pawlusinski, who are also online. At the beginning, I would like to express our excitement of collaboration, hopefully within the Coast project, and maybe finally a live meeting. We will try to visit Lisbon as soon as possible and exchange opinions in this research area. But today I would like to share with you the results of the research that fit into the broadly understood issue of studentification in urban research. The influx of students to cities caused broad and profound changes in many spheres of social and economic life in urban areas. Nowadays, some cities even consider services for students to be an important element of the city development strategy. We would like to discuss this problem in relation between students and the night economy on the example of Erasmus students who come to our city, to Cracow, every year. This is why we also called our presentation Erasmus student as a nocturnal species. What attracts them to Cracow? Cracow, as you probably know, is the most popular tourist city in Poland with great historical potential, visited by approximately 14 million people before the pandemic, including 3 million foreigners. Cracow is also an academic center in Poland with the longest tradition dating back to the 14th century. In our presentation, we would like to focus on a special group of students in Cracow, foreign students coming to the city within the frames of the Erasmus program. So the aim of our research was to identify and characterize the motives of Erasmus students coming to Cracow in the context of the city's night offer. We were concerned with the question of the place of the night offer, the structure of motivation for arrivals to the city, and the structure of needs and implementation of behaviors during the stay in the city. In this work, we're trying to explain how important nightlife is for Erasmus participants' decisions about choosing a place to study, an academic center. Nowadays in Europe, the phenomenon of Erasmus tourism is common, and both the cultural messages like films, reportages, and our own experience confirmed our belief that life of Erasmus students, as well as a life of national students, is a strong determinant of development of the city's nighttime economy. The presented results are only just a small part of the already mentioned of the doctoral project. The main conductor of that project was Lukasz Matoga, present also with us, and the scientific supervisors were Professor Mirosław Mika and Dr. Robert Pawlusinski, who is also with us. And the project was titled Attractiveness of Cracow for Foreign Educational Tourism, based on the example of the Erasmus program. So Cracow will be used here as an example, one of the most important academic center of Poland, where over 100,000 students each year came to this town, including 2.5 students coming under the Erasmus program. In Cracow, there are 23 universities of different profiles, technical, humanities, including 5 typical universities. The largest educational institution is the Jagiellonian University, with over 35,000 students. This is about 1/3 of all students in Cracow. 5% of students are foreign students. Currently, this share significantly changed due to the mass influx of Ukrainian students. We do not have yet precise data on this, but the number of students from Ukraine has increased significantly. All this makes young people, both domestic and young foreigners, an important group of users in the city of Cracow. On a European scale, the Erasmus program is an important factor for stimulating this phenomenon, of course. Every year, migrations for academic purposes under the Erasmus program involves almost 350,000 students traveling from one European city to another. When it comes to Erasmus students, about 2,500 came to Cracow. Until the time of COVID-19, this number clearly grew from year to year. In academic year 2018-2019, Cracow was the second most popular destination for Erasmus after Warsaw, after the capital of Poland. About 16% of the total number of Erasmus students wanted to study in Poland came to Cracow, actually. And the main nationalities of Erasmus students hosted in Cracow universities were Spanish, over 24% of total Erasmus students coming to Cracow for the academic year 2018 and 2019. Turkish, over 13% of all foreign students. Italian, German, and French, of French nationalities, it was about 11% each, and Portuguese students, 6.2%. To achieve the objective of work, a survey was carried out among Erasmus students who came to Cracow for the period of their studies. The research was carried out over 2 academic years, between October 2015 and September 2017. In total, more than 4,000 Erasmus students who studied in Cracow during these 2 years were identified. The electronic questionnaire was completed by 1,457 people, which is as much as 33% of the whole Erasmus population. Completing the questionnaire was in 2018, and the process of analyzing the data began. How does the respondent profile looks like? So mostly over 55% of the respondents, they were men in the years between 20 and 22 years old, followed by the group, also very big, of students within the range of age 23 and 25. 2/3 of the students visited Cracow in the fall semester. So fall semester is more popular than the second one. 40% of all respondents studied at the Jagiellonian University, and students from 6 countries accounted for approximately 65% of total number of respondents. They were students from Spain, Turkey, Germany, France, Italy, and Portugal. And now I would like to briefly present the results of the whole studies. So this table shows the general motivation for participating in Erasmus. This question does not, or this table does not concern the question of choosing the place itself. It should be also emphasized that students could choose more than one answer. Therefore, the results do not sum up to 100. First of all, here are represented students' motive for participating in the Erasmus program. What influences a young person that he or she wants to go, what needs he or she wants to satisfy through such a trip. The most important motive for participating in the Erasmus program is, of course, the desire to get to know the world, foreign cultures, and gain new experiences. What is interesting, young people make decisions from a scientific point of view much less often, unless the goal is to train a foreign language or enhance career prospects or invest in scientific development and gaining new skills. Looking at these numbers, you can see that for about 20%, an important factor for participating in Erasmus, without mentioning the academic center, so the place, the concrete destination, but only for participating in the program itself, is the desire for adventure and entertainment. it may seem that in this number, it is even understated. Or maybe general associations give away when we ask about a specific destination and its advantages in the decision process. This figure shows the reasons for choosing a specific Erasmus academic center. Here we try to answer the question of what factors were important when choosing a specific academic center, so academic destination. Please pay attention to the important radiation of individual factors determining the place of Erasmus stay. Atmosphere in the city, student life outside the higher education institution is the most important. The rank of this factor shows a value between 4.16 to 5 at the maximum. This is even higher than the cost of living in a given destination, academic center, which seems to be an extremely important decision-making factor among young people that we know from other studies. Interestingly, as many as 50% of the respondents consider the atmosphere of the city to be a very important factor when choosing a place of destination. Please also go through other factors. For us academics, it may be surprising that the teaching offer, the study program, and even the quality of the study structure are much less important than, for example, that entertainment factor. Let's have a quick look now on Cracow. Looking at the reasons for choosing Cracow as a place of study, we can discover that most of the respondents indicated that in their eyes, Cracow was the most attractive proposition for studying. For 58% of the respondents, the city itself was attractive, including the issue of the city attractiveness for nightlife, so for that kind of entertainment. In this question, in the case of Cracow, the importance of nightlife for the decision on the place of Erasmus Academic Center was not investigated, but the information on this subject was fully obtained from the analysis of spatial and temporal behavior, as well as feelings after the stay and associations with the city. For 30% of respondents, the study program in Cracow is interesting, and nearly 25% of the respondents declared that someone recommended Cracow as a place of study. And now, what is most important, it has been examined how students spend their free time in Cracow. In general, we can actually distinguish three groups of behaviors and of young people in their free time in Cracow. First group, that is marked in green, includes the forms of spending free time most frequently undertaken by the Erasmus students. So they were both sightseeing and walking around the city, and also social activities of a more relaxed nature, like participation in the cafes and nightlife in the city. Second group, in turn, here marked in blue, include activities related to meeting the needs of cognitive character, because we have here like visits to museums and art galleries, trips outside Cracow to other cities, but also entertainment needs, participation in festivals and cultural events, like hobby development, interest development. And the third was the sport and the recreational activities, active rest, sport and recreation. The activities that the least frequently indicated by students were included in the third group, and those are participation in the cultural life of the city, including visits to cultural institutions, theaters, operas, and broadening knowledge during training courses, cultural workshops, or museum lessons, marked here in orange. As can be seen in this graph, the activity strongly related to the night economy, here heartily important, here marked in a green color. Here is a detailed overview of the previous information and answers on Erasmus students on spending free time in Cracow. Please pay attention to that green color here, which shows the frequency of the phenomenon, answers with the very often status. Over 50% of respondents indicated that in addition to sightseeing and walking around the city, they spend their free time in cafes, restaurants, pubs, and discos. From this, we were able to clearly see the combination of free time with city's nightlife. Looking at the map of the city of Cracow, we can see that the majority of young people choose the historical district where the nightlife is the most developed for their places of residence. These are also typical tourist zones of the city. It is worth pointing out that Cracow does not have a specific spatial concentration of nightlife facilities intended only for. Sometimes it happens when there are areas of dormitories, very few cases in Cracow. But in most cases, student premises are adjacent to facilities directing the offer to other group of recipients. It often happens that students are one, but not the only group of clients for a given premises in the center. All of this can lead to some functional conflicts. A very important issue is the associations that concern the city, expressed and named by students participating in the Erasmus program in Cracow after they stay. In the open question, answers about associations were obtained here from Erasmus students, and various issues have arisen here. As you can see, Cracow is mostly perceived as a city of fun and nightlife, city of students, city of heritage, city of history, traditions and legends, city of gastronomy, and city of culture and arts. The question, actually answers to that question, emphasize that young people, although they also notice urban problems, here seen as associations with smog, with overcrowding, city of greenery, perceive and see also other spheres of life in Cracow as a place of their residence. Here, very briefly, here on that slide, that graph clearly illustrated the most common and mentioned associations about the city of Cracow among Erasmus students. Cracow is seen as a city of fun and nightlife, city of students, city of heritage, and city of history, traditions, and legends. Here, we can also see some examples. We have some personal statements and answers of students taking part in the survey about the nightlife in Cracow. A mayor from Turkey said, "The nightlife in Cracow is amazing. There are great music clubs, lots of cozy pubs, cheap bars, and romantic cafes, all within walking distance. This creates a unique and exciting atmosphere in the city center." Female from France said, "Cracow is a beautiful city that is teeming with day and night. There are plenty of cafes and trendy nightclubs in the main square, but also in Kazimierz, where you can drink and dance until late night." Male from Netherlands said, "I will remember the best sleepless nights during my stay in Cracow. Cracow offers everything at night, from loud clubs parties to formal theme bars. Regardless of whether you are clubbing or just wanting a beer, here you are guaranteed something to yourself." So just only summarizing that findings, we have to underline that Erasmus students are becoming an increasingly important factor for studentification of the city. They constitute a growing group of students, and it seems that this trend in Europe will not stop, even after the pandemic. Erasmus students, when choosing a place to stay and to study, pay special attention to the city's night offer, which they use quite often. Research shows that most important for young people is simple entertainment associated with its pubs, music clubs, and open outdoor spaces at night. The uncontrolled development of nightlife for students can lead to functional conflicts, especially negatively perceived by residents. This is especially important in those cities where there are no separate living quarters, living areas for the inhabitants and students. This was just a brief summarizing of those findings, and I'm sure that we can answer your questions if you have. Here are also our emails, and I hope that this is a drop of that's going to start the discussion about the studentification and connections in the context of nightlife in the urban city centers. Thank you very much.
So I will now present you Leve-Me Casa, an ethnography of the post-pandemic taxi drivers' experience in night hours in Lisbon. I will begin by presenting the context of our research, our methods, and what happened in Lisbon. And finally, we'll end this presentation with suggestions for future research. It should be mentioned that all of the photos that you see here we took all of the photos. So they are really representing the Portuguese reality in this matter. So our main focus was in Lisbon, Portugal. But before I start talking about that, I will just explain some of the context. So people are drawn into the inner cities by the allure of alcohol and the attraction it provides in this way of altering the mundane and the structured aspects of the daily life. As such, the nighttime economy can be understood as a means of escape, and as such, it has become a thrifting enterprise that has transformed many inner cities around the world, and that's the case of Lisbon in Portugal. This process led to the development of a number of ancillary industries that, to be fair, are said to be the reason behind why the nighttime economy has flourished. One of these subsidiary industries is the taxis and their drivers, and they are really important in this matter of assembling the atmosphere of city centers at night, and as such they link the suburbs to inner cities. Taxis can therefore be seen as an essential element of this nighttime economy by providing the only means of user transportation orientation available 24 hours a day, being not dictated by any route or even any timetable. As we all know, transport performs a really significant part in the development and maintenance of the nighttime economy, and it is really important to know that it is equally impacted upon the success or failure of the nighttime activities. Well, due to this fact, and due to the fact that there aren't other means of transportations, taxi drivers peaks during the nighttime, and also their tariffs are higher during the nighttime, and that explains why taxi drivers prefer to work at nighttime most of the times. So here we have a citation from one of our interviewees, and he said that the biggest difference between the night and the day is the smell. At night, people smell like alcohol, and by day, people smell like perfume. This citation only proves that taxi drivers at night have their own vision on the dynamics of people mobilization and their own mental map with their own social practices, and we thought it was really interesting to bring this to the table. So before the pandemic, this is some context. Before the pandemic, we could see really crowded streets. We could see parties all night with music and beverages everywhere. Taxi drivers at night, they were flooding every type of avenue and streets without the need to stop. People only yell at them, and they would stop for them to enter. Even there were an increase in number of taxis purchased. But this reality has changed after the pandemic, and we are talking about the time after March of 2022, where few people are now enjoying the nightlife. We have a decadent environment with bars closed with no opening forecast. Regarding the taxi drivers, we saw that taxi drivers were stopped for more than 5 hours at night, and their taxi fleet were reduced by 30%. It should be noted that we are not only talking about one fleet, we are talking about all of them, and in total in the main area of Lisbon, we are talking about 8 cooperatives in the main city. So regarding survival management, I will put this here. Okay. Regarding survival management, we asked ourselves, how did they survive the pandemic? What did they do? How was their night? What are the dreams and nightmares? And finally, how did they experience the pandemic? To do so, we searched for the official strategies, and we asked ourselves what was the role of the Portuguese government and how did the state try to help the taxi drivers, and if it failed. Okay, to do so, we're now going to show you the methods, but to do so, we did a critical ethnography that started in 2021, and it's still going because this, as I said, we are showing our preliminary results, and countless of local observations. We did already 27 interviews with taxi drivers, taxi centers, and associations, and also countless informal conversations. We also did an in-depth documental review of legal bases and also the news published during the same period. Regarding our location, we chose 3 main areas, so-called Rocio, Bairro Alto, and Príncipe Real, as we can see in here, and that was due to the saturation of the number of services that have been formally identified, and also its proximity to the night party areas. It should also be mentioned that these 3 locations were given to us by one of our privileged informant who worked in a taxi company. Okay, so here we present the legal basis with direct effects on the night taxi drivers, and it needs to be, I'll take this, it needs to be understood that there are here some of them that are really important. For instance, this, the first one in March of 2020, that taxi drivers over 70 years old must stop their activity. This, just for this, it's really important because it shows a lot of job insecurity regarding elderly. Here we also have in November of 2020 a new state of emergency with mandatory curfew, which dictates that all nightclubs and bars should stay closed, ruining all type of nightlife that could emerge. After that, we have a Apoiar program that I will explain in further. We have ICU or IVA exemption for those who have a turnover of 12,000 euros. In the 4 previous years. In February of 2021, the government announces that taxi drivers are entitled to a specific remuneration. And here in November of 2021, again, we have a state of calamity that forces bars and nightclubs to close. This is like the scenario that we've been working on. Regarding the official strategies, the Apoiar program, it's a program to support for the recovery, but has such many entrepreneurs when they went and they tried to apply, they weren't able to do so. This happened because as they were exempt from the ICU, the IVA, the system recorded them as in debt to the revenue agency, and they were excluded from that. This should rely on the responsibility of the transportation agency, whom was responsible for creating an IT solution that would pass this information to the revenue agency, but that didn't happen. Additionally, if you take into account the profile of many who carry out this activity, the taxi drivers, we have a lot of retired people with really high age, and they do not have any type of tie with social security. And as such, this program, the specific remuneration, for instance, are not included in this matter. Additionally, it should be mentioned that there was a request from all of the types of the associations that work here in Portugal to improve the taxi driver's life. And it was asked for the government to have a similar program to other countries, such as Germany or even Spain, but that wasn't the case. They didn't approve it. Here we have some interviews, some sentences that we thought they were really important, and keep in mind that all names have been anonymized. Here Zé thought that he was lucky because he had a contract for almost 10 years and therefore he was entitled to the unemployment benefit. But bear in mind that this is from Social Security. This is not from those programs. The rest of the interviewees said that the government didn't provide anything for them and they had to resort to another things to be able to live and to bear with life. So, with the pandemic policies, we see that the bars and nightclubs are closed. There is no nightlife. It it's not possible to travel at night. So how did taxi drivers, what did they do? Did they stop working at night? That's a really important question. To do so, we analyzed the interviews that we made, and these were some of the coding points that emerged from the analysis of the interviews, namely the lack of income, loss of customers, little visibility, and problems with authorities. Regarding the lack of income, there were two main groups. The first of them was if the taxi driver drove his own taxi, and the second was if he drives the company taxis. Regarding the first one, they all said that they have to draw on their own savings, or they have even to have to sell the taxi, where the second group said that they were forced to find another job, even by their companies. For instance, Afonso, who was a taxi driver in Bairro Alto with 52 years old, said, "Look, it was the greatest irony of fate, as I say. I always condemned Uber for everything they did in the beginning, but during the pandemic, I ended up signing up to do food deliveries too." Victor said, who was 65 years old, said that he always had to work 2 jobs during his lifetime. And here in the bottom, we see that another driver said that he had no other option and he had to work as a bricklayer without a contract, without a fixed income, everything under the table. Regarding the loss of customers, it is important to bear in mind that they had to change their night route. They were experiencing longer waiting periods without customers. They were earning a maximum of 20 euros for a 12 and 14-hour shift. Strip clubs, hotels, and fado places who usually gave money to taxi drivers to drive people and tourists there stopped giving money to taxi drivers, and they could only drive people to the hospital, putting them in a risky situation right in the front line without the government noticing that. Here we have an example. I will put this in here again. We have an example of Pedro, who was a taxi driver, and this is his route before and after the COVID pandemic. Here in the left one, we see that he starts in Bairro Alto, and then around midnight, he goes to Príncipe Real, where he stays at 5 a.m. in the morning. And then he goes to the hotels and to the main avenue and end up in Rocio. But after the pandemic, we see that he has to start his night in Cais do Sodré in order to get some customers. Then he drives to Bairro Alto and he does a lot of roads there. Then he goes to Príncipe Real, but after that he has to go to a shopping center, which is really further from the city. Then he goes again to the city center. Well, as you can see, there is a big difference, not only in time but also in fuel consumption. Regarding the keys, here are some interviews. People said that hotel strip clubs and fado houses stopped paying to take customers there. Some of them said that they didn't know why what to do. They didn't receive any money, so that wasn't worth it. Some of them said that they had to change their route, as we saw. Another problem was the little visibility. One of the tactics used to combat the lack of visibility was the advice on the use of digital applications. This was a new reality. This was not a new reality, as you might know, because some of these applications emerged as a result of the fight against Uber in 2016, but they were rarely used by taxi drivers in Lisbon, so they were advised to do so by their companies. And here we have an example of 3 of them, and then an image of the taxi driver using his application to pick up customers. Here Mario said that taxi drivers need to innovate, and taxi companies too. Some of them already had an application to call taxis, but they were rarely used, as I said. Regarding, and finally, problems with authorities. Taxi drivers reported that they had problems with authorities, particularly in times of confinement. And that was due to situations where they had to move between municipalities, situations where they had to wait for passengers on the streets when it was mandatory to stay home, some situations where taxi drivers were forced to turn back, preventing them to making their way, and problems related to the wearing face masks or even face shields against COVID-19 virus. Some interviews, Afonso said that it seems like the police never understood what we were doing, whether we were standing on the streets waiting for passengers or simply doing the job. They always had to come to us, and this was a really harsh reality for those who already had a lack of income. Regarding the monitoring report, for instance, the president of Entral said that taxi ranks, they were really complicated because they weren't visible in certain places of the city. And as such, people had to use digital passenger platforms to call like Uber and so on. In addition, taxis do not have any type of stopping zones in city. And when they did stop, the police always took them off. Okay, so what happened here? During the interviews, we heard some recurring recommendations, and that was the reduction of the amount of expenses due to the reduction of activity. That was a reduction of the price in insurance for taxi drivers. Currently, they are around 2,000 euros, but the private individuals only pays 300 euros. They want also support for social programs. They want to earn some money doing some type of publicity from the municipality. They want the implementations of progressive and seasonal tariffs, uses of social passes, increasing in the number of taxi ranks, as President of Entral said, inspection of TVDA services, and replacements of night roads with little demand for taxis. As you can see, there is a need to recognize the subject of night taxi drivers as a high priority topic by policymakers to achieve a new safe transition to this new post-pandemic nightlife. Taxi drivers across the world operate in a mobile environment that challenges the traditional concept of workplace and also their flow. As such, taxi industry is a service that is a vital part of this urban setting. They provide, as I said, a 24-hour transport service that is unlikely any other public transport. They perform a really strategic role in the nighttime transportation and in the managing of public disorder. For instance, taxi drivers can also help maintaining and managing the alcohol and drug problems that may arise in the night, as a better transport options may help to alleviate these issues. The appeal of a destination is simply related to how available and attractive these services are, along with the degree of access of availability. Providing an attractive, efficient, and economical transport service could thus impact upon this allure of the inner city as the nightlife economy, and also open the night to a broad range of people everywhere. Thank you so much.